Share via email. Report story. By 7 Rennie. Summary. Ochako had always wanted a pet, and she finally got one. She just never thought it'd be like this. She had to admit, Izuku was cute, and even more so in dog form. When two teens bump into a child with a weird quirk, Class 1A is in for a surprise. So Bakugo and Midoriya are. Yeah, they're dogs. Just a bunch of friends dealing with Deku and Bakugo as cute dogs. Dot. Ochako had always thought of having a pet. However, her living conditions and lifestyle prevented her from having one. It wasn't a complete loss, though. Koda's pet rabbit provided plenty of company. The cat cafe she visited offered an hour of cats rubbing against her legs and lots of fluffy kitten hugs, and dog owners always gave her permission to pet their pooches on their walks. She couldn't help it, her attraction to cute things was uncontrollable. Plushies, kittens, a dork with curly hair. She wasn't ashamed of let others know about her interests. Okay, that last one she'd rather keep to herself, and she had been very much pleased when the girls had given her a stuffed bunny as a feel-better gift when she'd felt sick. Her classmates surprised her all the time. But today, it was on another level. Hiroshima had sent a text to everyone, informing them that Aizawa wanted them all downstairs immediately. If the teacher was there in the dorms, then something wasn't right. Do you think someone's in trouble? Toru asked. She and Toru were both in the elevator, waiting for the loud ding sound. I hope not. She really hoped it wasn't another fight between Deku and Bakugo. However, what they found was far more interesting. Almost the whole class was present. Almost, because Izuku and Bakugo were missing. On the sofa was a woman, fiddling with the end of her skirt nervously. There were two pet carriers by her feet. Hiroshima kept rubbing the back of his neck, feeling Aizawa's irritation next to him. You're You're serious? Denki asked. He was staring at the carriers, one of which kept rattling as whatever inside wanted freedom. Dude, are you saying? Yes, Aizawa confirmed their fears. I'm so sorry, kids, the random lady on the sofa said. My daughter still doesn't know how to use her quirk yet. Her quirk therapist advised us to keep gloves on her until she figures out how to use it right, but she looked down at the carriers. I'm guessing one slipped off and she bumped into your friends and there was no need to finish. They all connected the dots in their heads. They looked at the carriers in horror. So Bakugo and Midoriya are. Yeah, they're dogs, Hiroshima confirmed. He grimaced at the memory. Midoriya, though, she was lost, and when he tried to pick her up, he shrunk into that, he explained, moving his finger in a circular motion as he tried to rewind his memory. The kid freaked out and grabbed Bakugo's leg, and the same shit happened to him. Most of the class was still trying to wrap their heads around all of this. Their friends were now animals. Can't you turn them back some way? Iida asked, panic seeping through his voice. The mother scratched her arm nervously. My daughter's quirk is slightly different than mine. My touch can temporarily give dog-like behaviors to a person, but that's about it. I didn't think she'd be able to turn people into dogs until she accidentally turned the neighbor's boy into one. She looked down when a growl came from one of the carriers. The boy turned back to normal in 2 days. We don't know if it'll take that long for them. Again, I'm so sorry. This all happened because I lost sight of her. Your friends tried to help and I'm so sorry. Promoted stories. You'll also like I Am. Sequel of You Are check mark 69.4K 1.8K. This book is the sequel of You Are, so better read that first before going here. Tears of joy, tears of joy. Thank you to that one reader that suggested this title. I can't see you sad face, but thank you. The Kings and Queen Yandere Wakfu X Reader 57.1K 1.8 Kyonder. Wakfu X Reader. Images do not belong to me unless stated. Wakfu does not belong to me, it belongs to Enigma. This is being rewritten in another book on my profile. Own Fluke Day 112K 8.2 kiloamperes. Collection of short Own Fluke over 365 days. Please check the second book for the rest of the day's update. Finished. 8.4K 508 tilde. He save all of them, just a smile plastered on his face before disappearing through the wind. Much needed love. Yandere Succubus Momo X Izu. 51.4K 809. After Wattpad had decided to delete this story out of nowhere, I and many reader were distraught. So I'm making a remake of the story from the ground up to compensate. Feelings. Izawa. X Reader 57.2K 1.3 KRE posting. This until I edited, sorry if it's not good, it's my first time writing a story. You enroll at UA and you have multiple quirks you are really good at using. Why? After all, Own Fluke 11.4K 802. Will edit once I'm free. N. This is a work of fiction, and any similarity with other works is purely coincidental. Excuse grammatical errors and misspellings. Eng. Hey, it was just an accident. Hiroshima tried to lighten her up when he saw her crying. And they'll probably turn back in a day or two, like you said. For the time, Aizawa was interrupted by a high-pitched bark from the carrier that kept rattling the whole time. For the time being, they'll stay in the dorms, so keep watch over them. If they die due to neglect, it's on your heads, understood? It was a weird feeling, seeing pet carriers and knowing their classmates were so small they managed to fit in there. Were the two okay psychologically? Did they retain their memories? After Aizawa showed the woman out, the class huddled around the carriers, eager to have a look. So Bakugo and Midoriya are in there? Momo asked, kneeling to inspect the carriers. How do we know which is which? Denki asked. He stuck his finger between the wires, then suddenly snapped back when tiny teeth lashed out and tried to take out his finger. Denki released a girly shriek. What the heck? That one's Bakugo, Kirishima said. His shoulders shook as he tried to contain a laugh. Should have told me sooner, man. Denki screamed while inspecting his finger, making sure the tip was still attached. A growl vibrated from inside the carrier. Two glowing red eyes glared at him from within the darkness. His mouth was open in a sort of grin with lips folded up to show pink gums and white teeth. The ears were so small they almost disappeared in the wild fur. The blonde Pomeranian looked ready to kill. He bit into the wires and shook his head vacuously, trying to forcefully break the door open. All right, all right, I'll let you out, Kirishima said as he messed with the latch. This is hilarious, Zero laughed. He's so tiny. As soon as Kirishima opened the prison doors, the little devil bolted out and attacked Zero's foot, snarling through clenching teeth. Zero yelped and lifted his foot, the tiny dog clinging to the end of his pant. Now outside of the carrier, he was mostly fluff, with a puffy tail and wild, messy blonde fur. Being a Pomeranian, his face resembled that of a tiny fox, and his red eyes caused him to look demonic. Holy crap! Denki exclaimed. That's really Bakugo. Okay, come on. Kirishima grabbed the fluff ball and tried to pull him away from Zero. The dog was holding on, a growl rumbling in his throat. Bakugo, I know you're angry, but don't take it out on him, man. The small dog released Zero and suddenly turned around to bite Kirishima. The red head activated his quirk just in time, and Bakugo kept biting relentlessly at a hardened arm. Yeah, I'll just take him to my room until he come down. Geez. The glare in Bakugo's eyes reflected his killer instinct. He looked up at his captor evilly and started barking like a maniac. Kirishima was sure the dog was cussing him out. The barking slowly faded as they used the elevator. Going up, a tiny whine came from the remaining carrier. Ochako sat on the ground, swallowing nervously. Should she open it, or let someone else do it? Was he okay? Was he scared in there? She sucked in a breath, peeked through the wires and gasped at what she saw. Her hand immediately went to unlatch the lock, keeping her eyes on him. Is Midoriya all right? Iida asked. He was still shook by the idea of his friend being in a different body. Ochako opened the door and slowly stuck her hand in. Deku, she called quietly, afraid any loud sounds might scare him. He inspected the hand, then rubbed his head against it. For some reason, that brought a smile to her face. She leaned in and picked him up by his midsection, bringing him out. The black toy poodle looked up in amazement. Everything looked big from his perspective. His curly hair had a light green shine to it. His short, stubby legs shivered as he dangled in Ochako's hold. Mina spoke. He's freaking adorable, she squealed. Midoriya, Iida called. Midoriya, is that really you? The poodle looked at him with a head tilt, and then gave a tiny squeak that was meant to be a bark. Ochako had always wanted a pet, and she finally got one. She just never thought it'd be like this. She had to admit, Izuku was cute, and even more so in dog form. She and the rest of the girls watched as he walked around in her room. Because of his short legs and the curly hair between his toes, he walked with an awkward waddle. He whined. A lot. She didn't know if it was his way of trying to speak, or if the sounds were unintentional. Nevertheless, it was cute as heck. I still can't believe that's Midoriya, Kyoka said. Heck, I still can't believe that's Midoriya, Kyoka said. He tilted his head at her for a moment then shook his head, his ears emitting slapping sound. His hind leg came up and scratched at one of the floppy ears. Midoriya, you're so cute. Toru cooed. Can I hold you? Please, 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 pretty please with a cherry on top. Ochako wondered if it was even possible for him to decline. Toru grabbed him anyway. He looked like he was hovering in midair. The curly hair around his body flattened when Toru hugged him, squealing at how soft he was. I wanna hold him, too, Mina said. In the end, the girls took turns holding him. He didn't complain. Instead, he looked slightly confused whenever someone passed him to the other person. Suyu gave him a pat on the head then held him out to Momo. I don't think Midoriya will be comfortable with this, Momo said. She tended to respect the privacy of others. Having one of her male classmates in her arms was too intimate. Come on, Mina encouraged. Everyone gets a turn. He's not gonna stay like this forever. Here. She dropped him on Momo's lap. He almost slipped off and she was forced to hold on to him. He was, indeed, very soft. Something fluttered within her chest, and when she placed a gentle hand on his head, she smiled at how his tail waged. It was easy to forget who this dog used to be right now. All she saw was a lapdog. When he was finally given to Ochako, she held him to her chest like a child. It was better than holding any plushie in the world. The girls decided to go check on Bakugo in Kirishima's room. Ochako used Deku's paw to wave bye-bye at them as they left. Sorry, Deku, she said shyly, putting him down on her bed. We must have tired you out, huh? You can sleep on my bed. I'll go get you something to eat, okay? He just stared at her as she left, his mind still swirling. He had had his face pushed against breasts the whole time and he'd accidentally smelled their feminine aromas with his highly sensitive nose. If he were in human form, he was sure he'd be suffering through a nosebleed by now. Ochako was lucky to be the one taking care of Izuku. He was a good boy. She learned he liked to do a few circles before napping on her pillow, and he was also generally quiet unless he got excited by something, such as when Toru got him a tug of rope toy modeled after Kamui Woods. Ochako was sure Deku wasn't dog enough to be interested in that, until he grabbed it and chucked it around. Turned out some dog instincts had affected him in more than one way. Mina recorded him with her phone as she teased him with the toy in the other hand. She held it just out of his reach. He balanced on his hind legs, and when he fell back on his bum, he barked at her. It was an actual bark this time. She'd heard him whine and snort and huff and squeak, but never bark. It just reminded her how much dog he really was. He tended to circle whenever he wanted something. He'd figured his inability to speak wouldn't hinder him if he could communicate some other way. He also had the habit of hopping while running. That little extra bounce in his step was to make up for the short distance his little legs would cover. He was an awkward guy, and he still managed to be an awkward dog. The other dog was a different story. Katsuki was vocal. He growled and barked at everyone, and judging by the plasters on Denki and Siro's hands, he was aggressive as well. The amount of shedding was horrifying. Hiroshima had to vacuum his room, and even then it seemed useless because he'd find other patches of blonde fur later. Bakugo would easily snap, and he didn't like being touched or held, which was a shame because that luxurious fur was very tempting. Mina failed to resist, earning her a nick on the finger. Hiroshima was the only one who could handle his painful bites, but even he got nipped once or twice. It only happened when he didn't have time to harden his body, such as when he'd accidentally stepped on Bakugo's tail. The attack was so fast he hadn't realized what happened until he saw the thrashing tail by his foot. Both Izuku and Katsuki were fed cooked chicken and veggies. The teens felt uncomfortable about feeding them cheap dog food from the pet store. At times, they would get bursts of energy out of nowhere. They would both run back and forth aimlessly, with Bakugo barking his head off because that energy had to be released somehow, and Deku shoving the Kamui Woods toy in Ochako's hand to get her to play with him. Something needed to be done about this. You're taking them outside? Iida asked. Ochako kneeled down and attached the collar the girls had bought for Deku when they'd gone to the pet store for supplies. While she was sure he didn't need the collar and ID tags, she wasn't about to lose him. There were moments when he acted almost completely like a dog, with no traces of the original Izuku in him at all. That made him unpredictable, and it scared her sometimes. He wants to run. Isn't that right, Deku? She ruffled his curly hair and his tail waged. She wasn't sure when she'd started to baby talk to him, but everyone else was doing it, so why the heck not? He shook his body and the tags on his green collar chimed. Hiroshima had to fight to force the red collar on Bakugo. The Pomeranian saw the collar as an insult and had tried to destroy it within seconds. Hiroshima had to hold him tight and let Denki fit the collar on. Hiroshima really didn't want that thing on his friend, but even he experienced the all-dog Bakugo phases. The eyes told everything. When the dog looked at him, he could tell if Bakugo was still there. It was still disturbing he'd find black eyes instead of red pupils, a sign that Bakugo had no control anymore. They'd first panicked when it had happened to Midoriya, and after talking to Aizawa, who had later talked to the woman from before, he assured them it was temporary. Got it. Denki threw his hands up, grateful to step away from the small demon of a dog. Hiroshima released the blonde dog. There. That wasn't so bad, right? He tried to be optimistic. Bakugo gave him a death glare and scratched at the collar with his back foot, trying to get it off. Denki saw Deku waddling over to him and he squatted down to scratch him on the head. He noticed what the poodle had on and laughed. Midoriya, what the heck are you wearing? The tiny dog had a green hoodie on with the words All Might written on the back. Ochako laughed sheepishly. The girls saw it in the pet store. It was cheap, so can't blame them. Denki admitted, holding Deku up. He's pretty damn cute. Who's a good boy? You are. Yes, you are. If dogs could sweat drop, Izuku would be doing so by now. Katsuki snorted at him. Izuku managed to translate that as, idiots. Give him here. I never got to hold him, Hiroshima chuckled. He placed Deku on his lap and ruffled his head playfully. His tail waved, and Denki couldn't believe his eyes. Tail wag. Damn it, Midoriya, why are you being so cute? You've never seen him do that before? Ochako asked, pointing at the Pomeranian. No. Bakugo's so lame, Denki said. All he does is bark and bite. Seriously, look at what he did to me. Plasters. Get him a muzzle or something. Gah. The blond dog latched on to his leg with his teeth. Kirishima, control your child. He screamed, hopping on one foot and reaching to grab the dog. Kirishima chuckled. You were the one showing favoritism. Outside the building, Ochako and Eijiro walked at a relaxed pace as the two dogs ran ahead, racing each other. Izuku had his tongue out and Katsuki looked as if his life depended on winning. They would zoom back and forth, so there was no reason to hurry after them. Eijiro kept recording them with his phone and Ochako had her hands behind her back as she watched the two canines have fun. She loved Poodle Izuku. She really did. But she missed that boy who had been a sort of strength in her life. Her day just didn't seem complete without his voice. Izuku turned to the side and rushed into green grass, hopping his way through. Izuku turned to the side and rushed into green grass, hopping his way through. She stopped and sat down on the grass as Kirishima continued following Bakugo. Izuku would run, come back to her then run back. It was his way of telling her he wasn't about to run off. Her phone buzzed. She saw who it was and immediately picked up. Daddy. Hey, kiddo, greeted the man on the other line. How's my little hero doing? She cherished these calls. She was already so far away from them. It was nice to hear their voices every now and then. She'd fill them in on her progress and they'd exchange words of encouragement and promises to see each other again someday. When it came to goodbye, however, she would always end up in tears. Goodbyes were bittersweet, and her delicate heart couldn't handle it. I miss you, she told him, feeling a trickle down her cheek. She smiled and smudged it away. Miss you, too, Ochako. Now, don't rush things. Take as long as you need. Your mother and I will wait for you. Hum. She felt the dam break, so she used her whole arm as a tissue. I'll do my best, I promise. She heard a small whine next to her and saw Izuku looking up at her sadly. She placed her hand on his head. Thanks for calling, Daddy. Always have time for you, kiddo. Stay safe, and keep up the good work. I will, she promised and tried to wipe away the wetness from her face. Izuku walked away from view. We love you, hun. I'll call again later. Okay. She nodded, even though she knew they couldn't see her. Bye bye. Love you both. The phone clicked and she held on to it for a while. She looked up to the sky, blinking away the wetness from her eyes. Her journey was for them. All of it, so she could help them live a decent life. They were good people. They deserved so much better than what they got. She'd get there, eventually. A whine sounded next to her. She looked down and saw the Izuku with a mouthful of white flowers sticking out. She couldn't help it, she laughed through her tears. Deku. What? Why? What are you doing? He pawed at her lap, his tail wagging. She finally understood. He was trying to cheer her up. He suddenly sneezed, and the flowers puffed everywhere. That only made her laugh harder. She picked him up and hugged him. Thanks, Deku, she whispered. She felt him lick a tear from her face and she giggled at how it tickled. Momo divided what was left of the chicken earlier into two plates. One finally meal before everyone could go sleep. She held each and took them to the dining area. She saw almost the whole class huddled at a corner, some kneeling low to the ground. What's going on? Momo asked, as she saw Mina put a finger to her lips, telling her to stay quiet. When Momo got closer, she couldn't blame them for wanting to get a closer look. Both dogs were asleep. Deku was resting his chin on the Kamui Woods toy, and Bakugo was using the back of Deku's neck as a pillow. The tip of his tongue was sticking out as well. No one had ever imagined these two would ever get this close without getting into a fight. Yet, here they were, as dogs, cuddling and resting from the long day. Hours later, they all went their separate ways. Getting ready for bed, Ochako pulled the blanket over herself and sighed in content. She'd removed Izuku's collar and hoodie right after returning from the long walk. Day 1 over. She'd have her friend back tomorrow. She felt the bed dip and saw Deku as he made his way over. He had gotten up from where he was near her feet. He nudged his snout beneath the blanket and she lifted the covers so he could crawl under. He circled a few times then curled into a ball by her stomach. She liked the heat he was sharing. Night, Deku. She wasn't sure what had rattled her from the waves of sleep. Was it the sudden heat that engulfed her? Was it the strong sensation of being held? Was it that familiar, male odor that seemed closer than ever before? She cracked her eyes open, only to see a mess of curly hair in her face. She moved back to see better, then froze in shock. A naked human arm was draped over her hip. The body was almost her size. His face, freckled and relaxed and human, was inches away from her. He was still asleep, and she felt every exhale against her face. Out of fear, her body slowly leaned away and her mouth hung open in disbelief. The slight movement stirred him, and he, too, blinked and looked at her in confusion. His green eyes were still filled with sleepy haze. He blinked at her again before lifting his head a little to look around. The action caused the blanket to slide down his shoulder. His muscular shoulder, muscular, naked shoulder, then muscular chest, neck. He was naked, under the covers of her bed. A gasp escaped her lips, which brought his attention back to her. He looked at her stupidly. Then when his hand went to rub at his face, he realized he had a hand. His eyes snapped back to her. They both stared at each other for what felt like an hour. Realization slowly simmered, then went up to a boiling point. They both screamed. In his panicked state, he had tried to back away, only to hit the wall behind him. The blanket was up to his hips, just barely covering his dignity. His right side was almost uncovered, and damn her eyes for catching a glimpse of the curve of his buttock. He was stronger built than she'd thought, and was very nice to look at. Her pink cheeks turned red and she covered her eyes. Deku, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I. I don't know what happened. Just. Air. Just. Don't look. I'm so sorry. He kept spluttering apologies and frantically looking around for anything to use. The door slammed open and voices tumbled in. Uraraka, Ochako. Did you scream? What happened? Is she all right? You woke us up. What? Everyone froze. A minute passed. Ochako and Izuku stared at their friends in horror. Their friends stared back in confusion. Everyone was silent, until Mina let out a burst of laughter. Midoriya. She managed between gasps. You. You changed back. He's naked. Denki realized. Oh no. Toru quickly ran out the room. I'm sorry. Midoriya. I didn't see anything. That's really bad timing, Suyu stated. Guys, please. Izuku pleaded, not liking how almost everyone was present. Everyone, please leave him be. Iida shouted. You can all speak with him when he is decent. Do not worry, Midoriya, I shall get your clothes immediately. Iida rocketed away. You heard the man. Everyone out. Zero said and everyone backed out of the room. Zero gave the two in the room a thumbs up before he closed the door behind him. Man, Midoriya's ripped. Wasn't expecting that. They heard Denki, followed by the others agreeing with him. Both Ochako and Izuku were blushing madly. They refused to look at each other. He yanked the blanket up to cover more of his body. Sorry. I'm really sorry. No, no, it's not your fault. We didn't know you'd change back so soon, she assured him. I'm still sorry. I scared you in. I really hope this isn't gonna be weird in the morning. She shook her head no, still not looking at him. He was as flustered as she was. It's fine, Deku. I'm kinda glad to have you back, actually. Yeah. He sighed in relief. Glad to be back. Why'd he change back, though? Kyoka asked from behind the door. They told us today, right? I guess they were wrong. Denki thought out loud. Or maybe the quirk works differently with different people. Momo said. If so, then Bakugo. Realization hit them. Crap. Bakugo. Denki yelled and slapped himself in the head dramatically. Someone warned Kirishima before. Mina's words were interrupted by two shrieks from another room. Never mind. Ochako loved cute things, and she wasn't the only one. It was nice to know the whole class had the same interest. The picture of two dogs cuddling was sent to everyone, and Bakugo wasn't too happy about it. Midoriya only blushed and hid his face. He had a hard time believing that was him and Bakugo in the picture. When Ochako visited Midoriya in his room, she saw the tiny hoodie and Kamui Wood's toy by his hero collection. She liked cute animals, but her freckled friend was cute enough. She was content with that. Where stories live. Discover now.